Hello, how are you doing? I feel like I haven't talked to you in this format in quite some time, but it has been far too long since I have done a Disney Flashback video, so today I am doing just that for you, and it's going to be the first movie I've spoken about that is not an animated one, but it was on the list and I decided I wanted to rewatch it and do it for you, and the setting seems fitting because we're going to be talking about Bedknobs and Broomsticks. This came out in 1971. When I started watching, I only recalled maybe watching it one time as a kid, but I didn't remember anything in terms of what it was about other than Angela Lansbury is in it. The movie begins with a theatrical overture type music, as well as animation drawings, but they looked different from past animations. The drawings also had a medieval Renaissance feel to them. The Sherman Brothers did the music and lyrics. One thing that surprised me right at the beginning of the movie was that they showed Nazis and the Nazi flag. The story begins August 1940 in England. Once I saw that, I understood the Nazis being in the show opener a little bit better. We meet three orphans, Carrie, Charles, and Paul, who are all siblings. Angela first appears on a motorbike that is blowing green smoke. Ms. Price is her character name. The government is trying to find homes for the orphan children so that they'll be safer. Ms. Price is only there to pick up a package when it's suggested that she take the three children. She responds by saying, "Children and I don't get on. Besides, I have work to do, very important work." The woman trying to place the children responds that she has a very big house all to herself, and according to the order of the Ministry of Civil Defense, she does not have a choice. Ms. Price responds, "Very well. I will take them into my house with the understanding that you will find a more suitable home for them as soon as possible." Ms. Price has a black cat who is not very friendly. The kids ask his name and she replies, "I don't believe in giving animals ridiculous names. I call him Cosmic Creepers," because that's the name he came with. The kids are not thrilled about their new accommodations, especially the food options. It turns out Ms. Price is a witch. The package she was picking up was a broomstick, and with it a letter from the Amelius Brown from the Correspondence College of Witchcraft, telling her she's qualified and may now call herself an apprentice witch. Meanwhile, the kids have formed a plan to run away back to London. Ms. Price is attempting to fly on her broom, but there is a learning curve and she's struggling. She finally gets it and takes off for a flight outside. At the same time, the kids are sneaking out the window and see her flying on her broom and immediately assume she must be a witch. Then they begin arguing about whether or not they should still go to London or stay. Charles suggests that they stay, figuring that Ms. Price won't want anyone to know that she's a witch, and the fact that they know, they can use that as leverage against her. When they confront her about it, she says that she would appreciate if they didn't tell anyone in the village about it. Charles says, "Of course, but there'll have to be some changes around here." He then asks for sausages and strawberry jam. Not together, but like those two food items to be able to have and eat. As well as less washing. For some reason, they don't like washing before meals or just in general. Not sure why. And then he ends by asking her for cold, hard cash. Ms. Price tells him, "Witches can't make money out of thin air." And so he responds, "You wouldn't want us to blab." She counters with, "Have you considered what danger you might be in? I am a witch after all." Charles calls her bluff and says, "Turn me into a toad." But instead, she turns him into a rabbit. Carrie is worried and says, "Don't let him get hurt." Ms. Price responds, "Relax. My spells don't last long. I'm only an apprentice witch." Later, Ms. Price tells them that the work she's doing is very important to the war effort. Charles has turned back into a human by this point, and he's still insisting that she give them something valuable to seal the deal. So she tells them she will give them one of her spells. a traveling spell, but they will need something they can twist to make it work. Paul has a bed knob that came off the bed the previous night, and she says that will work. She then says the spell, and the bed knob lights up. Then she tells them the knob will now work the famous traveling spell. She told them to take the knob and put it back onto the bed, give it a quarter turn to the left, and then in a clear voice tell it where you want to go, and the bed will take you there. Carrie thanks her, and then Ms. Price lets them know that Paul is the only one that can operate it and make it work. Then Charles, probably partly from jealousy, says, "Fine mess he'll make out of things." And if I followed correctly, I believe Charles is the oldest, Carrie is in the middle, and Paul is the youngest. Next, Ms. Price receives another letter from the school. It says that due to the war effort, they've been forced to close down and won't be sending her the final lesson that she desired. She's understandably upset, and the children ask if they can do anything. She says Paul can, and that she needs the bed knob back and to get to London ASAP. At first, Paul says no and that he wants to go to the jungle. She explains why she must go to London to see her professor and get her final lesson in hopes to stop the war. Charles is skeptical about the spell and doesn't want to go. Ms. Price asks how old he is. He's 11 going on 12. She says, "What my father used to call the age of not believing." Then she starts to sing a song about not believing. At the last minute before they're ready to take off, Charles gets freaked out by the cat and decides to jump on the bed and join everyone else. They fly on the bed and end up in London. Ms. Price asks Charles if he's a believer yet. He tells her, "Not yet. We haven't been taken to Professor Brown." But then they do find him, and he's performing as a street magician. A little side note for you, the actor who plays Mr. Brown was also the actor who played Mr. Banks, the father, in Mary Poppins. And the actor's name is David Tomlinson. Ms. Price is quite shocked herself when she sees that this is her professor. He tells her there are no refunds and to review her contract. He then tries to leave, so she turns him into a rabbit, so he'll stay. He is shocked when he learns to find out that the spell she used to turn him into a rabbit was one of the spells that he gave her, because he said those were just nonsense words that he made up. He does turn back into a human not long after, and she tells him, "They worked perfectly fine for me." He tells her he took the spells from an old book, but that he altered some of them. Ms. Price says she wants to see this book, so they take the bed to the next address. Next, they arrive at the home where Mr. Brown is staying. It's not his home, he's just kind of taken over this abandoned home. After some hullabaloo, Ms. Price is able to get the book, but the end of the book is missing. She asks him where it is, and he says he doesn't know. After some back and forth about where he got the book and where it could be now, he tells her that if it still exists, she will find it at Portobello Road. So that's where they head next. To me, it seemed to be like a marketplace or flea market, because there was lots of what looked like independent vendors set up on this Portobello Road. Ms. Price goes to the book stands trying to find the other half. The book is called Spells of Astaroth. As she is asking a seller about it, we see another suspicious-looking man overhear her. And they did have some other songs throughout the movie, but I didn't find them to be that great or very catchy. After Portobello Road closes for the day, the suspicious man is back. He starts trying to sell things to Mr. Brown before threatening him with a knife. Then he tells them that the bookman wants to see them. They go because they don't really have a choice. They, of course, bring the bed with them. Evidently, Mr. Brown and the bookman have a history. The bookman does have the other part of the book and asks who the woman is that's with Mr. Brown. After some explanation, the bookman tells them that they are both after the same spell. "I have one clue and you have the other." Ms. Price responds that the sensible thing to do is cooperate. They swap their sections and come to find that neither of them has the words or the portion of the spell that they are looking for. They determine the final clue to be on a star on the island of Nambubu, an island completely ruled by animals. The bookman says he has looked for it and it does not exist. Paul says there is too such a place. They saw it in a children's book that they discovered when they were exploring Dr. Brown's house. Paul has the book and the bookman wants to see it. They say no, so he threatens them with a knife. Ms. Price says, "Come, children, it's time to go." And the bookman says, "How? The door is locked." He doesn't know that they can transport the bed. Paul asks Ms. Price where to go, and she says the island of Nambubu. I really hope I'm saying that right. To get to the island, they have to go through water. A lagoon. A fish tells them that the land, or the island they're looking for, is right above them. He warns them, "I wouldn't go there. They are having some trouble." Once the underwater portion had begun, they incorporated animation, kind of like they do in Mary Poppins. So you have the live actors, but you have animation all around them and as the background. They have another song and dance together. And the adults jump off the bed and dance around in the water. As they are finishing up, a fishing hook comes down into the water and hooks the bed and starts pulling it up. Ms. Price swims after them and grabs onto the bed. Then Mr. Brown grabs onto her. Once they reach the surface, they see it's an animated bear who has caught them. He is in a sailor outfit. So Mr. Price walks up to him and tries to talk to him, mariner to mariner. The bear says to him, "Can't you read?" Then we see a sign that says, "No people allowed by order of the king." Since Paul has the book with him, he knows the story of the island. And he tells the bear, "Wait a minute. It says here anyone can see the king. It's the law." The bear responds, "If you know what's good for you, you will get thrown back. The king don't like people." Ms. Price replies, "Nevertheless, we must see the king on an important personal matter. Please lead the way." The bear says, "Okay, don't say I didn't warn ya." The king is a lion, and he loves soccer, or football since they are British. Mr. Brown tells him, "I know about football," and agrees to be the referee for a game the king wishes to have. That's when they notice the king is wearing the Star of Astaroth, the final piece of the puzzle around his neck. He said it's been in his family for years. Next, we cut to the game. It appears that the teams are unfairly matched, with the king's team having the favor. The opposing team at first seems slightly terrified. In the process, as the referee, Mr. Brown is getting beat up. Of course, the king and his team end up winning in the end. After the game, Mr. Brown offers to help the king put on his coat and does a little switcheroo, swapping the star with a whistle. Then Ms. Price, witnessing what has happened, says, "We should be going." Not long after they are on their way, the king notices the switch and starts running after them. The knob on the bed is stuck and Paul can't get it to go right away. So Ms. Price turns the lion into a rabbit so that they are able to get away. They end up back at Ms. Price's house. She is going to try the final spell. She asks Mr. Brown for the star, but it's disappeared. She says, "It's all right, Mr. Brown. I should have realized it would be quite impossible to take an object from one world into another. But this didn't completely make sense to me because then how could the bed go from one world to another?" Ms. Price is trying to remember the words on the star. Paul says he knows them, but nobody takes him seriously. Later, he starts to say them, and Ms. Price sees that they've been in his book this whole time. So their trip to the island was completely unnecessary. She says to him, "You mean they've been here this whole time?" But she's saying it in a way like, "Why didn't you say anything?" And he says, "Nobody ever listens to me." The spell is not really working, so they decide to turn it into a song to see if that will help. Ms. Price tries again, and a pair of shoes start dancing on their own. Then a sword and a bunch of clothes start dancing with them. This part was a little weird. Ms. Price thinks so too, and wants to know how to stop it. Mr. Brown tells her on page 8. And as she's looking, things start to get even more out of control, but eventually she gets it to stop. Ms. Price is upset that she hasn't mastered the spell. Mr. Brown says, "You just need more practice." Next, the lady from the beginning who gave the children to Ms. Price shows up at her house, saying she's found a home for them. But Ms. Price is surprised and unhappy when she hears this news. The children say how Mr. Brown has become like a father to them, and they want the 5 of them to stay together. Ms. Price and Mr. Brown need to think it over. So the woman says she will return in the morning. After a little while, Mr. Brown decides that it's time for him to leave. He tells them that maybe he will see them after the war is over. Ms. Price tells him, "The children will miss you." And the kids express this as he's leaving. Now, for some reason, the Nazi soldiers show up at Ms. Price's house, and meanwhile, Mr. Brown is asleep at the train station because he missed the final train for the night. At Ms. Price's house, the soldiers tell her it's not an invasion, but an exercise to warn the British that they can invade anywhere at any time. As is par for the course, Ms. Price threatens to turn them into a rabbit. They don't take her seriously, so she attempts to do it, but forgets the spell. So the soldier in charge threatens to send them somewhere that they won't bother him. Meanwhile, at the train station, Mr. Brown is fantasizing about Ms. Price being his magician's assistant. Then he hears the Nazi soldiers. He manages to get away from them and goes back to Ms. Price's to check on everyone. At her house, the soldiers are about to catch him. So he looks in the mirror, says the spell, and turns himself into a rabbit so that he can get away, because since he was saying the spell, looking at himself in the mirror, it worked on him. Ms. Price and the children are taken to an abandoned castle. Eventually, Mr. Brown is able to escape as a rabbit away from the soldiers and join them, and he turns back into a human. There is a bunch of medieval soldier armor in the castle. So Ms. Price decides to use the final spell on this medieval armor. After some time, they move outside, and I'm not sure how, but a bunch of other mythical soldiers show up, and Ms. Price is leading them all from her broom flying above. Ms. Price and her enchanted soldiers fight, and since they're enchanted, the Nazis can't kill them, so they're able to hold off the Nazi soldiers. And then British soldiers finally show up, and what's left of the Nazis row away. That scene goes on for much longer, but I'm giving you a very abbreviated version of how it goes and what happens. Unfortunately, Ms. Price's house got destroyed along with all of her spells. Paul asks if this means she won't be a witch anymore. And she tells him that she's just happy she was able to do some good, and she's not meant to be a proper witch. Mr. Brown ends up joining the British Army. One thing I wasn't sure about is why they portrayed all of the soldiers in the British Army as being old men, like they looked like they were probably in their 70s, 80s, and they all had white hair, and there was no young men in the army, which I found odd. I didn't know why they portrayed it that way. The movie ends with him marching off with the other soldiers. Charles says, "Well, I guess we won't have fun anymore." And Paul says, "I've still got this," while holding up the bed knob, smiling as it sparkles. So if I did see this as a kid, I don't remember I didn't remember while watching it anything about it, which makes me think that maybe I didn't. And I can kind of understand why, because I think there are some parts that could have been scary for me when I was younger. I also wonder why in the 1970s they decided to focus on this particular time of World War II for a children's movie. I also, as I had mentioned, didn't find the songs to be very memorable. And while it wasn't bad and I'm glad I watched it, it won't be one that I rewatch as far as Disney movies go. And I wouldn't say to put it at the top of your list. But I do still love Angela Lansbury, but she is in better things. I hope you enjoyed this Disney Flashback. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. It lets YouTube know that you like my videos and will send it out to more people. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't so that you always get notified when I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!